Alright everybody, welcome to a video that is going to be pretty different from what I'm used to doing. This is going to be Final Fantasy XIV specific and mostly related to monk stuff, so if you're not really interested in Final Fantasy XIV or monk stuff, probably not the video for you, but we've got an expansion coming up in the next 2 months. We had a very lengthy live letter recently that went over several of the jobs, if not, I mean, it went over all of the jobs, but some went into more detail than others. Monk was one of those jobs, and I pretty much only play Monk. I guess to kind of preface this video a little bit, I should probably give some history as to my experience with Final Fantasy, since probably very few people, if any, in the community really know who I am or what I do or what I play in the game. But I've been playing Final Fantasy for about 5.5 years. I started playing in the middle of Heaven's Ward. I started playing during that second tier of Heaven's Ward. I didn't start raiding until Creator. Raided every tier from Creator to this current tier, this final tier in Shadowbringers, except one tier that I did not really do. I did not do the second tier of Shadowbringers. I would say shortly into the first tier of Shadowbringers, I just wasn't having a lot of fun with the game. I wasn't very happy with how Monk was, and I just, you know, if you're not having a good time, you might as well take a break, right? Try to come back later. That's exactly what I did. I came back towards the end of the second tier, did a little bit of extra, just a small amount of raiding. I tried to get some gear from the tier. I only stepped foot into the first 2 fights. Well, I did do a little bit of Shiva. I didn't do any of the third fight because I don't think I needed any gear from that fight, but I did do a couple hours of Shiva prog, and I just still wasn't very interested in that tier or the game at that point. So that's the one tier that I really don't have a lot of experience with recently, and it was also a very bad tier for Monk, so I'm pretty not upset that I missed that tier, honestly. I'm pretty glad that I missed that tier. Other than that, I've been playing Monk for almost the entire time. I started playing Bard, but that only lasted like Heaven's Ward Bard for like 4 months. I didn't really like Heaven's Ward Bard, and someone suggested Monk to me, even though Monk wasn't really in the best spot back then either. I was a lot more casual about it and didn't really care, so I picked up Monk, but over time I've gotten better at Monk, and I understand, you know, quite a bit about Monk and what goes into it. If you want to look up my character name is Adalbert Thunderfists. Very, very good Monk name, or at least I like to think so. I like the name, but if you want to look me up, see what my raiding experience actually is, or you just want to see how my character looks, I mean, you can do whatever with that information. I don't know what you would really do with it, but before we get to expansion, I guess, which is 2 months away, I kind of wanted to do an analysis / breakdown over a bunch of the Monk stuff that we know right now. I was hoping to get some tooltips translated. I know the Awk Morning Twitter is doing some translations. I think they've only done Summoner so far. I know they also said they wanted to do, I think they had Reaper, Sage, Monk, and Summoner to do, and they've only gotten through Summoner right now. And while it was about 4 days ago, and I'm kind of worried that Monk's going to take a while because Monk is the least popular job in the game right now. So they got Summoner up. Sage and Reaper are probably both going to be much more interest in that because they will be brand new jobs. So I got the feeling whenever Monk does get, you know, translated, it will be a while from now. It could be right after this video. It could be, you know, 12 plus days from now, and I just kind of wanted to do this now. But I do have the job trailer video. I do have some tooltips that are not translated, but I do know some information about the tooltips. And I also have the demo video that they did on stream, though I'm mostly going to be using the tooltips and the showcase video, not the demo video. The demo video will help with like one specific thing, I think. It's not really going to help a whole lot, but we'll basically go through the showcase video. We'll just kind of let it play out. Once it's played through one time, I will probably start going into some of the specifics of things that I've noticed, including the tooltips that I do have. So we'll open up the showcase video. Bam. And we'll just take a look at this real quick. So we start off with Brotherhood, and we've got a brand new ability, which is Riddle of Wind. We'll get to that a little bit later. We've got new shoulder tackle into Perfect Balance. We've got our new AoE that replaces Arm of the Destroyer. We've got 4-point Fury, Rock Breaker, and then a Blitz of some sort into 6-sided, and then we don't do anything for a while. We use Forbidden. We use another PB. We go into another blitz building activity here. And we use our final blitz, our big finisher blitz, and that's pretty much the whole show. Now we're going into Summoner. Actually, we're not, so let's go back to the beginning and start breaking this down ability by ability. And I'll probably be jumping from this video into the tooltips picture that I have, the little image of the tooltips that I have, so we'll be bouncing around a little bit. So let's start off. We'll start off with the opener, which is going to be a lot of info coming up. So we go into Brotherhood, and then we've got Riddle of Wind. Did I call that Riddle of Fire earlier? It's Riddle of Wind. Let's open up the tooltips and take a look at this opener so far. Here's the tooltips I've got. Unfortunately, none of them are translated, though I do know some info from them because I have seen some loose translations. I was hoping for some very specific English translations, but unfortunately I just don't have that right now. So we start off with Brotherhood and this ability, which is Riddle of Wind as far as I know. Immediately, Brotherhood has a couple of changes. We've got 120 seconds on Brotherhood instead of 90. Riddle of Fire is the same. It does have a change, but this is 60. So our smaller personal DPS buff and our utility, like our raid utility buff, is on a longer cooldown, and our just our raw personal damage is on a shorter cooldown. Monk has been historically on a 90-second timer since Stormblood hit, and 90-second timers are pretty annoying to deal with if you play a 90-second job, because while most jobs are on a 60-second timer or some sort of, like, 120 goes into that as well. You generally, 90 seconds will eventually line up with 60, but it's just kind of annoying being on a 90-second timer. It feels like a lot of fight transitions and a lot of times that you end the fight do not happen on your 90-second timers, so this kind of aligns Monk with most of the other jobs. Obviously, Riddle of Wind is still 90 seconds for some reason, but this helps Monk line up better with the other jobs. That also helps their fight design be a little bit more consistent, because instead of like Warrior and Monk and whatever other jobs are on 90 seconds just getting screwed over on their own in some fights, now everyone's just going to be on something that's like 60 seconds. Everyone will line up better. If Monk is getting screwed over now on a 60-second timer, then pretty much everyone is getting screwed over. It just keeps the jobs kind of a little bit more aligned, but we do have some changes here immediately. I'm not sure why they didn't use Riddle of Fire in the job showcase trailer, but it probably doesn't really matter. These three abilities you definitely will be using in the very beginning of your opener. You want to keep all these nice and lined up. The other change that Brotherhood has is that you can kind of see some of the numbers here if you're familiar with the tooltips themselves. You can kind of get some information out of this. So like this probably lasts 15 seconds. This buffs everybody in your party, including probably yourself, by 5%. So this stuff is still the same. We've got a different blurb here, which is a 100%. This is pretty much Monk getting a guaranteed chakra from its own weapon skills in Brotherhood. So instead of a 20% chance from yourself 7 times, you'll just get 7 chakra or 6 chakra or however many GCDs you can fit in this. Obviously, you might lose uptime or something, but generally this is going to be a lot more consistent for Monk. You'll be guaranteeing about 7 chakra instead of maybe 1 or 2. As it is now, you get a 20% chance, and you probably get 1 or 2 chakra from yourself on average as it is now. With this change, you'll be getting 1 every GCD. Looks like the level is still the same. All these levels are pretty similar. This looks like it has no changes. 25% from Riddle of Fire. I think that's about the same. 20 seconds long. The cooldown is shorter. This cooldown's longer. Riddle of Wind, though. Riddle of Wind, I don't know the exact translation of this, but this is on 90 seconds for some reason. After they just got rid of Monk's 90-second timers, now we have a Riddle of Wind timer that's 90 seconds. It lasts 15 seconds. Interestingly, you get this at 72, so you are going to load into expansion with this ability already, assuming that you're level 72 or higher. If you're a level 80 monk, if you're endgame monk right now, you will already have this. So we're getting this a little bit earlier. This will not be it's a new ability, but it's not going to be within the like 81 to 90 range. What this ability basically does, we can see a nice 50 here. This ability increases your auto attack rate by 50% from what I've seen of the translations. So for 15 seconds, every 90 seconds, you'll be getting 50% faster auto attacks. Kind of a strange ability. I know I've seen some discourse about this ability and why it's being added into Monk's kit. It feels a little empty. It's also on a 90-second cooldown, which is kind of weird. They just got rid of these 90-second cooldowns here. And then they give you Riddle of Wind, which is on a 90-second cooldown. This obviously will just be extra damage over the course of the fight. You are going to want to keep this lined up with your opener if you can, when it does line up. Unfortunately, I think these three line up every 6 minutes with each other. So you get a big opener in the beginning, and then 6 minutes later, you get another big opener. And then if you make it to 12 minutes into the fight, then I guess you would get another big opener. But I think some of these timelines, you'll have Riddle of Fire and Riddle of Wind lining up. You'll have Riddle of Fire by itself. You'll have Riddle of Fire and Brotherhood. So you're going to be kind of jumping around between this. But I've seen a lot of discourse with this ability. People are just kind of like, why are they really adding it? It's a 90-second cooldown. It just increases your auto attacks. That's great. It's extra damage. But why is this really being added? It is something extra for Monk to do. And one of the things that I haven't really seen people talk about that I think could be a decent possibility going into expansion is that auto attacks may affect chakra generation, which it does not work that way right now. This is just kind of pure speculation. I have some things that kind of back up my point, but nothing is really for sure. There was no way I could really definitively prove or disprove that auto attacks may generate chakra. There's a couple things that I do want to point out that kind of helps back this up just a little bit. So we'll go back to the showcase, and we'll just kind of look at this. Unfortunately, if you watch this video, they do not have any auto attacks going. They don't want the animations to be muddied up when they're showing these like job showcase videos. They don't want you like firing off auto attacks between GCDs. They want people to see animations pretty clearly. They don't cancel any animation really. And not auto attacking or disabling auto attacks is a pretty good way to make sure that these animations stay nice and clean and you can see everything. So since they're not auto attacking, you can't really prove or disprove that you get chakra from autos. And I know people will say, well, you know what? Hey, Seamus, they showed Monk in a demo. They played it on the live letter. And I say, oh, hey, let's check out that video. So now we've got this video where Yoshi-P is playing Monk. They are showing Monk a little bit. One thing that I want everyone to also notice is that if you look at the hotbars, basically this bottom bar is pretty useless. There's really nothing on this bottom bar. They have things kind of organized. This is kind of like a utility section. I'm not sure why Riddle of Wind is over here, unless they're going to change how it works. But there's kind of like a utility section over here. Another little utility bar here. Here's your opener stuff, and then you have Enlightenment here. Here's your AoE rotation. Here's some more randoms. So we got like Forbidden. You've got the new shoulder tackle, PB, 6-sided. And then your general rotation here and here, plus your blitz. If you notice, there are no more damaging off globals in Monk's kit at all, except for Forbidden and Enlightenment, which pretty much share a resource. They share this chakra resource, so you're not really going to be using these. Like it's not like an elixir field tornado kick thing where they're like both independent of each other. They both have their own independent cooldown timers. You know, you use one and then the next GCD you use the other, or if you're able to double weave, or probably not a whole lot of people double weaving out there, but if you're able to double weave, then you can do that. But there are no damaging off globals anymore. I think one of the main reasons for this is that Monk's current opener is incredibly clunky. You pretty much are taking a loss either way in Monk's current opener. You're either pocketing chakra and sitting on your forbiddens to get certain abilities out or off globals. You're either drifting your off globals because you're trying to get your forbiddens out. Like, there's just not really great things going on. Like, there's too many things to really activate in Monk's opener. You have a PB, you have random forbiddens that come up, you have elixir field, you have 1 to 2 shoulder tackle charges, you have a tornado kick, you have any other things that you needed. If you need to mantra, if you need to feint, if you need to use a positional cooldown, like, there's way too much stuff going on in Monk's opener. So I think them getting rid of the off globals is pretty much trying to clean up Monk's opener a little bit. There's probably other reasons as well. A lot of these changes probably have multiple reasons going into them, but that was the main reason that I kind of figured out. Other than that, let's get back to the auto attack thing. You'll say, well, you know what? You probably auto attacked in the demo. I know that was a point I made about, I don't know, a couple minutes ago. So we'll see whenever he starts attacking. He does some shoulder tackles at first, and now they talk about the blitz. So he comes in and he starts attacking. But what do you notice here? Conveniently, his chakra gauge was completely filled up from the beginning to the very end. He doesn't clear it one time. You are not able to tell whether or not chakra is gen'd through auto attacks, unfortunately. So I think that it's potentially likely that, you know, you generate chakra through auto attacks. I'm not sure if him having a full chakra gauge is on purpose, because if that is a trait that gets upgraded at some point in Monk's kit, it would be pretty easy to hide that you get auto attacks just by having a full chakra gauge. There might be something simple that kind of disproves me. I'm open to being disproved. You know, it'd be nice to know accurate information, and this is all just speculation on my part, but I think it's possible that auto attacks will affect chakra generation in the expansion, and that would help give this ability a little bit more identity in Monk's kit. But at the same time, is that enough to make this ability good? I'm not really sure. It's still a 90-second cooldown. If auto attacks do generate chakra, how does it work? Do you get a chakra on a crit? Is it a chance on a crit? Do you get one chakra every single auto attack you throw out? I have no clue, but I think that it's a decent possibility that auto attacks will generate chakra, and that kind of feeds into this ability a little bit more. It also makes Monk a little bit more active, because you are getting all of your off globals taken away for the most part, except for forbidden. So if you're generating chakra faster, then you're getting more forbiddens out, and that kind of like makes up the time between openers, because other than that, people have noticed that all of Monk's off globals are removed, and you know, about every 60 seconds you're not really going to be doing a whole lot. You're going to be kind of holding on to your perfect balance charges to try to get those blitzes out in your opener. Obviously, you don't want to hit 2 stacks of perfect balance. You want to keep that cooldown rolling, but you do want to fit as many blitzes into your opener as you can. So PB is probably going to revolve around stocking blitzes and using them in your opener. I'm not exactly sure how it works, but that's kind of the opener, and that's kind of my speculation with this ability. Hopefully I'm right, because if this is just kind of an empty ability they just kind of threw in, yes, it makes sense with Monk. Monk is a fast GCD, fast auto attacker. Yes, it does kind of make sense, but at the same time, it feels kind of empty, and you want to see it not be quite as empty. So I haven't seen anyone really talking about whether or not they think auto attacks will generate chakra. I haven't seen one person talking about it. That's not to say that people haven't been talking about it. I just haven't seen anybody talking about it. So that was something kind of new and interesting that I'd kind of thought of. Hopefully it kind of is that way, but I think that's pretty much the opener in a nutshell. I think this was the most I had to talk about was opener changes. We got cooldown times changed. Brotherhood's going to be a little bit more consistent with chakra. We have Riddle of Fire that's on a shorter cooldown. You'll be getting more of these out. And then we've got kind of weird Riddle of Wind. We'll kind of see how this works. I also think that Monk might be moving away from our DPS or utility DPS a little bit, because Brotherhood is still giving 5% to the party, but now it's on a longer cooldown. And Riddle of Fire is also on a shorter cooldown, so I feel like Monk may be more personal DPS oriented than it is right now. We'll see how that works, but I think that's pretty much the opener. I think your opener is going to be pretty busy if you do get chakra, especially if you get chakra every auto. I think that sounds kind of unrealistic, but maybe critting your autos gives you chakra. I feel like your opener is going to be pretty busy. You're going to be working on these blitzes. You're going to be working on activating all of this before you go into your kind of like burstier phase, and then you're just going to be hopefully generating a lot of chakra. And hopefully that's just kind of how the opener goes. So we've talked about that for a while. Let's go back to the showcase. We only got 2 abilities in, basically. which was basically Brotherhood and Riddle of Wind. Now we'll start getting into a little bit more stuff. We've got the new modified shoulder tackle. It's kind of an instant transmission ability. They removed the potency from shoulder tackle, so no longer will you be juggling shoulder tackle for potency and damage in your opener or outside of it, obviously. The main goal with shoulder tackle right now is to save it if you need mobility, but don't let your charges cap, and also try to get shoulder tackles under your opener for a little bit of extra potency. But now that stuff is gone. I like the shoulder tackle change. I'm not the biggest fan of like juggling it for potency. I don't really mind it right now. I don't really mind juggling it for extra potency, but I would rather it be used for mobility, especially because Monk has mobility issues right now. The only mobility Monk has right now is shoulder tackle, which is it's a good gap closer. That's fine for mobility. Sprint, which everybody has sprint. And six-sided star, which is very clunky to use properly, and also the movement speed buff you get from it, I don't think is very big. I don't think it's sprint speed. I'm just gonna say that it could be. I feel like it's more like Riddle of or Fist of Wind speed. I feel like it's just kind of like a 5 or a 10% movement speed. It's not very good. This is gonna be much better for Monk's mobility because this ability will allow you to teleport to teammates. So especially in Party Finder and static situations where you have good ranged in your group who are pre-positioning for mechanics, you'll be able to zip to them. Hopefully you can kind of push uptime on the boss and then zip out to a range that's kind of pre-positioned, and then, you know, for a point-blank AoE, you'll be fighting the boss, you'll zip out, you'll zip back in as quickly as you can, and you'll keep your uptime. For people who queue with reliable friends and people a lot, this is going to be very good for you. I queue with a healer constantly. I queue with Ashe, who plays Astro. Ashe is going to be a very good anchor for me. She is going to be pre-positioned at all times because she's always pre-positioned for herself, so I'll be able to reliably use her as an anchor to kind of dash around, which is going to be great. I'm looking forward to that. That is a good change that I like because I am pretty not happy with Monk's mobility right now. But immediately after that, they PB. And then they use this nice brand new attack. Let's take another look at that attack. That was a pretty nifty looking attack. Couple spin kicks, got some electricity on it. Let's go. There's probably a better way I could do this. Let's go back to the tooltips. We actually have a tooltip for this. It's this move right here. It is probably the first thing we get in the expansion unless we get something at level 81, so you'll eventually have this for the first dungeon. You won't have it immediately unless you're level 82 the first time you go into the dungeon. And I know that many of us probably can't read this tooltip, but it's 140 potency, I'm pretty sure, at all times. This is basically Arm of the Destroyer upgrade. So you're going to have Arm of the Destroyer. It eventually gets upgraded to this. The difference with this ability is that it automatically crits if you're in the correct form. I don't know if that means it crits one enemy automatically and the rest are random. I don't know if you use this ability and you just crit everything. I'm not exactly sure. We'll see how this works when we get some more info. But this could be critting every single enemy, which would be potentially very good in dungeons. Monk in dungeons right now is not very good from a damage perspective. It is constantly like number 8, I think, in dungeons. No one really parses dungeons and runs them, but out of the logs that were uploaded, Monk is not the best when it comes to AoE. So hopefully they are making Monk's AoE a little bit more consistent. I think part of the problem with Monk is that it's on a 90-second cooldown again. When you do have your opener, you do a lot of AoE damage. You probably do some of the most AoE damage in the game under your opener. But the problem is you only have your opener every 90 seconds. And when you're not in your opener, you're not doing a whole lot of AoE damage most of the time. So Monk, generally pretty underwhelming in dungeons, hopefully. I mean, it's not the biggest deal. Most people aren't really crazy about dungeons anyway. But I would like to be a well-rounded Monk. I would like to be, you know, good in all content if possible. Right now, it's just not the greatest in dungeons. It's not really gonna, like, hurt you in a dungeon run, but it could do a little bit better. So hopefully this is a bit better. We'll see if it crits everything or just one thing. Either way, that's pretty good because that helps you get a little bit more chakra. You'll be getting like one chakra guaranteed. Most of the time, if you have enough enemies, though, like any AoE you use is gonna crit. It does happen, but it is pretty rare. Like generally, if you're AoEing 3 enemies, you're probably going to crit one of them, but it doesn't always work out that way. So, and it's got a cool new animation. Arm of the Destroyer's animation is a little bit dated, especially the weird cracks that it leaves on walls and stuff. If you stand next to a building and Arm of the Destroyer it looks really weird. So it's got a nice new fancy animation. That's pretty cool. It has something a little bit extra with it. It automatically crits if you're in the correct form or something similar to that. So we'll see how that goes. Let's go back. I mean, I do have some stuff down here, but I'm trying to like hide my taskbar. As you can see, it just kind of pops up every now and then. But maybe this wasn't the play to do. Anyway, let's go back to this. We've got 4-point Fury. It's our second hit in the combo, and then Rock Breaker, and then we've got a Phoenix Blitz. So let's go back through that again a little bit. So we've got whatever that new AoE is, then 4-point Fury, and then that. Also, because we use Brotherhood in the beginning, you can kind of look at the chakra generation here. So, you know, Brotherhood, you come in, they're probably in the correct form as well. I mean, they have to be in the correct form because they perfect balance, but this monk gets 2 chakra here. That backs up this ability automatically critting at least 1 target, so that's, you know, 1 chakra from that. Plus, you get 100% chakra chance in Brotherhood from your own weapon skill GCD, so there's the other chakra, so that's how that kind of works. And there's the second guaranteed chakra. They finish their combo, and then they have 3 different seals. I don't know exactly. I don't know if we're calling these chakra or seals. Like, this on the end here, these 2 on the end here are like yin and yang chakra. I'm not exactly sure what the names of these are going to be, but I've been calling these 3 in the middle kind of seals. I don't know exactly what to call them, but once you get 3 different seals, you get access to this like big Phoenix AoE. That's pretty cool. Another tool for Monk's AoE. We also have a tooltip for this. Here it is. I don't know what any of this means. This appears to have 650 potency, and it's also AoE. I don't know why. I don't know if this is JP specific, but all of the ranges have M on them. I don't know. I'm assuming that might be meters, but at least when it's translated to English, they use yalms. It's like a Y. It's like ilms, fulms, and yalms instead of inches, feet, and yards. But, I mean, whatever. It says 3M, says 3M, 5M. I'm assuming this is just the range, so it's a nice AoE attack here. 650 potency. I can't read any of this other stuff. This might have fall off. This potency might fall off. I know several of the jobs right now have AoEs where it's like, hey, this AoE does 1,000 potency for the first target, and then like 900 potency for the second target, and then it just keeps falling off. They have some AoEs like that. I don't know if this AoE is going to be like that. You do need your blitzes to activate this. I am interested to know what the AoE rotation will be. It might just be like your first, second, and third GCD so you can get access to this because this looks like it's going to be a lot of damage. You might just spam this new ability, this like electric dragon kick, which I'm not exactly sure what to call. Because it auto crits everything, and then I think you get an elixir field if you have like 3 of the same seals for your blitz. It's all kind of confusing right now. I mean, it probably isn't going to make a whole lot of sense, and I'm potentially wrong anyway, but it'll be interesting to see what the AoE rotation is. So that's what this ability is. It's like Phoenix thing. It's pretty big potency. It's AoE. That's pretty neat. And then they 6-sided. And 6-sided, I'm pretty sure, has no changes because, as you can see, right after 6-sided, they shoulder tackle, which is an off-global. I mean, it's not. It's whatever the new shoulder tackle is, but it's the shoulder tackle, which is an off-global. Then they use Forbidden, which is an off-global. Then they use Perfect Balance, which is an ability which you can use off-global. So, generally not a good way to play Monk, at least right now. You are not 6-siding. I don't even know how to say the ability name in this case, but you're generally not using 6-sided star to then fill up the gap with a whole bunch of off globals. Like, you are only using 6-sided if you lose more than 2 GCDs or something similar, or if the boss is going to jump and be untargetable, or if the fight's going to end. So I think that works the same way, and then they're just kind of filling up this time with a couple off globals. But then they start going into another blitz. They PB. They've got 2 of the same seals here because they use Dragon Kick into Boot Shine. There's Dragon Kick. There's Boot Shine. Then they use Demolish. Now they have 2 of the same seals, 1 different one. However, it's a little bit different because they have both of these extra chakra. They have Yin and Yang. They have both of these extra chakra here, plus 3. I think once you get both of these, like, light and dark chakra, I don't think it matters what seals you have. I think you just get this, like, super finisher that most people have been calling it Star Shower, or an ability from Tifa. Take a look at that as it happens here. Kind of teleport around, you do a kick, you do a slam. It's pretty cool stuff. People have been saying that this is from Tifa. I haven't played the Final Fantasy VII Remake. I have seen a video, and it does look really similar. Originally, I thought this was Phantom Rush from Final Fantasy VI from Sabin, which also makes sense because the Blitz system is pretty much from 6. So I'm hoping that it's called Phantom Rush or Bum Rush. But if it's called Star Shower, I mean, the name really doesn't matter, you know. I'm sure more people would be happier if it was Tifa's ability. Final Fantasy VII Remake is a little bit more fresh in people's minds than original Final Fantasy VI. So you've got this ability. It goes pretty crazy. I also think that this might be what Tornado Kick gets kind of moved to, because if you pay attention to the end of this animation, it does kind of look Tornado Kicky to an extent. Like right there, there's kind of a flash of Tornado Kick there, and then you slam down, which isn't really Tornado Kick. I think this is going to be a very high potency move for Monk. I know the formulas have been they've said that the formulas are going to get changed, and that like the physical and magical formulas are going to be the same or similar, because they are a little bit different now. If you take a look at magical ranged weapons versus like physical melees, and I guess just anyone, all of the magic weapons have more weapon damage on them, and it's just I don't really know exactly what they're changing, but they're changing something. Either way, this ability will probably have a lot of potency on it. You are probably going to want to get that in your opener if at all possible. This thing is probably going to have, like, I don't know, 1,000 or more potency on it. I could be very wrong on that. Let's check the tooltips again. Obviously, we have our Phoenix ability, which is a nice AoE ability coming in at 650. That's what I'm kind of basing my guess on this other ability that we're looking at, Phantom Rush or Star Shower, whatever you want to call it. So if this is 650, I'm assuming this mega finisher is going to be even higher than that. So it looks like Monk is probably going to be getting a pretty beefy finisher. We don't really know what anyone else's potencies are at. So even though 1,000 potency sounds like a ton for Monk, you might see all of the other jobs much higher. I'm not exactly sure, but I think they're trying to give Monk like a nice big hit. Monk doesn't really have a big hit right now. Some people like the big hits. I don't really care either way. Monk to me is more about fast GCDs and positionals rather than, you know, a big hit like Madare or something like that. So either way, it doesn't really bother me a whole lot. But some of these other tooltips, we've got Rock Breaker. A lot of stuff seems generally unchanged, even though I can't read a lot of this. Your form will last 30 seconds now instead of 15, I'm pretty sure. So you have a lot more leeway with being in your form and figuring out what you want to do with that. I don't know exactly why it's been changed to 30 seconds. It seems like the level you get everything is probably pretty similar too. You got level 1 Boot Shine. This is probably the first ability you get in the expansion at level 82. 30 for Rock Breaker. None of the 68 and 70. This is all the same. This is a brand new ability getting put in at 72. They said they were moving up the chakra system. Unfortunately, Forbidden Chakra does not have the level you get it on it. You have to look at like meditation, which is your chakra charging button, which eventually turns into Forbidden anyway. They said they were moving this up. I don't know when they're going to move this up to. Obviously, Brotherhood did not get moved up at all. That's still at 70, so your like main chakra generation buff tool is still the same, even though they're moving chakra up. So that's going to be kind of interesting. And I don't know, I guess we'll just take a look at some of these other ones. Not really. Bootshine has had its potency lowered. Just about all of these seem similar or the same. Bootshine does 70 less potency in this build. Right now, you are really reliant on hitting your bootshines. And if you miss your bootshine, it is very, very bad. All of these other positionals you miss 30 potency. Which isn't the end of the world, but 30 potency every 2 seconds does add up. If you miss a bootshine, you're seriously losing like over 200 potency. You're losing 60% extra damage, give or take, depending on your crit. Because this automatically crits, so if you miss the positional and it doesn't crit, then you just lost 60% extra damage. Plus, if it automatically crits, then you get a Chakra currently, and a Chakra is worth about like 64 potency or something. So you're missing a lot if you miss bootshine. Hopefully they're kind of weaning Monk off of bootshine a little bit. Just a little bit. You are way too reliant on hitting bootshines right now, but that's just kind of how it is. And a lot of these other tooltips we've kind of gone over. Here's the new shoulder tackle. You get this at level 35. You get 3 charges. I almost guarantee you start off with 1 charge and you get some trade upgrades over time. You'd probably get your second trade upgrade, maybe. I don't know. You get this at level 35, you probably get your second trade upgrade, like moving into Heaven's Ward content, or maybe Stormblood, and then you probably get your third one in Stormblood or Shadowbringers. I get a bad feeling that one of the trade upgrades is going to be an Endwalker. You're going to get your third trait or your third charge of this in Endwalker, which is kind of like, I mean, whatever. I don't really know what they're going to add to Monk between the levels of 83 and 90. I just don't know, because like you get this at 82. We'll have to see. Hopefully we get some good stuff, but it might just be stuff like a third charge of this shoulder tackle, or like I don't really know what else. I feel like in 90 you might get the final like piece of this Blitz. I feel like in 90 you might get Star Shower / Phantom Rush. I have no. This is all just random speculation, but. I think I talked about mostly what I wanted to talk about. Talked about the opener in depth. We talked about how all the damaging off globals got removed and how all these timers are different for your opener. And I'm just trying to remember. There was a lot of stuff I wanted to talk about, but I think I covered most of it. The biggest thing that I kind of thought of myself was auto attacks generating Chakra, which I think is a decent possibility. Otherwise, this is just kind of an empty ability, but... Mostly, I think it's looking good. I've played Monk for a long time, and for both Stormblood and Shadowbringers, I was pretty disappointed in the showcase that we got for Monk. Immediately upon seeing the videos and knowing some of the tooltips for Stormblood and Shadowbringers, I was pretty disappointed. The like elemental fist tackles. That whole system in Stormblood, if you played Monk, you weren't very excited about that from the beginning. It just did not look the greatest. And then Shadowbringers introduced a whole bunch of just random stuff, and it didn't really fix any of Monk's problems. And Monk needed help by the second tier. The first tier it did pretty good. The fight design actually kind of lined up with it and allowed it to do well. Also, like, several of the jobs in the beginning of Shadowbringers were not in a good place. Samurai, Ninja, and Summoner, all 3 of them were just not doing very well in the beginning. So Monk actually did pretty well. But those 3 jobs eventually got some help, and the second tier came along and just absolutely just ravaged Monk. Monk did not have a good time in that second tier, and then it got kind of a half rework, and now this is like the last half of that rework where they're adding in some different mechanics, like the whole Blitz thing, couple upgrade, like an upgrade for your ability, addressing your cooldown timers being kind of annoying, except for this one. I don't know why this is 90 seconds. It would be nice if this was 60, but I don't know. It seems like they're trying to get you to do something like every 30 seconds sometimes. So like the way this is set up now, you have your big opener where you use all 3 of these, and then 60 seconds later, you have a Riddle of Fire window only. And then 30 seconds after that, you have a Riddle of Wind window only. And then 30 seconds after that, you're in Riddle of Fire and Brotherhood. You have a Riddle of Fire Brotherhood window. And then I think 30 seconds after that, you have maybe 60 seconds after that. I don't know. I'm bad with timing. Like, that you're kind of juggling these on and off until they all line up again. But is that enough for Monk? I don't know. I think the opener is going to be pretty busy. And I think there's also some things that we may not know about Monk yet, like auto attacks generating Chakra or other things that might make it busy in some downtime. Right now, Monk has kind of this problem anyway. Your opener is 90 seconds right now, and you have obviously 90 seconds between openers because both Riddle of Fire and Brotherhood are 90 seconds right now. But you do have some off globals to kind of make up that time. Right now you have, 1 or 2 shoulder tackle charges, you have Tornado Kick, you have Elixir Field. Those are some things that you fill in that time, but if they do make Chakra generation faster, then instead of hitting, random off globals like Elixir Field, you're going to be getting some more Forbiddens in. It's a little bit easier because it's only one button, but Monk has some pretty bad opener problems right now, and I feel like they're getting rid of off globals to fix that, and I'm not really sure how Monk will be, but this is probably the best stuff I've seen for Monk going into an expansion. I don't know how Heaven's Ward looked, but Stormblood and Shadowbringers just did not look very good. It really didn't end up being very good for Monk either. I'm a pretty firm believer in wait until things come out to try it, to see what it is. I think it's good to make kind of guesses and try to figure out things beforehand, and even if things don't look the best, to try to go into expansion with an open mind. And I've done that the last 2 times, and it did not end up very well. But this is so far the best I've seen Monk look going into an expansion. A lot of things have been fixed. There are some unknowns. I know a lot of people, again, not happy with Monk going into this next expansion. They don't like how a couple of the positionals have been removed. A couple of positionals have been removed on True Strike and Twin Snakes. I'm not really sure about that. That was something that did kind of confuse me. This isn't a big deal to me either way, but right now I would probably prefer to keep these 2 positionals just because that's just kind of how Monk is. I'm just kind of used to it. That's kind of how Monk is. I'm willing to have an open mind. Like, this isn't going to be a huge deal for me, probably. I know people aren't too happy with that. I know for some reason people aren't happy about the shoulder tackle change. They don't like the potency optimization being removed, even though this is better, I think, for the job as a whole because you get more mobility out of this. People kind of questioning Riddle of Wind, and I'm also there with them on that. That Riddle of Wind doesn't make the most sense to me right now, but again, I'm just kind of, wait for more info. We've got the media tour coming up in a couple of weeks. We've got more tooltips to find out, more trait upgrades to find out, actually properly translated tooltips. We've got a lot of info to go. But for now, I think I've talked about most of what I wanted to talk about. I'm sure there's always something I forget, but I think pretty solid overall. Things are looking good for Monk going into expansion. Does that mean it will be good in expansion? Does that mean it will be fun to play in expansion? No, but right now I think it's looking pretty good and probably the best that it's looked going into an expansion so far. So that'll pretty much wrap it up. Hope you learned some new things. I learned quite a bit by trying to delve into a lot of this stuff and just kind of figure stuff out. If you've been keeping up on Monk info, you probably knew most or all of this, but hopefully you did learn some new things, and hopefully this kind of entertained you and informed you. I had a good time talking about it, actually. I thought it was going to be a little more annoying to try to talk about this stuff, but that's going to be it for me. Thank you for watching. Hopefully I'll see you guys somewhere else.